Operator-led funds are outperforming traditional VCs by 17 times on realized returns. The signal is loud. Execution beats theory. But slapping operator in residence on a website isn't the same as mobilizing 200 operators who can fix pricing, pipeline, and post-sales this quarter. So the question isn't, should operators invest? It's, how do you structure and scale the operator model so it consistently builds enterprise value? I'm Tom Chavez, and joining me today is Leyla Seka, chair at Operator Collective, which unites 200 plus top operators to back and accelerate the next generation of enterprise startups. A former Salesforce EVP who helped build the multi-billion-dollar app exchange ecosystem, Leyla has the scars and the receipts. Leyla, great to have you with us today. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Tom. Happy to be here. Always like talking about this stuff. So excited to be with you.
Yeah, and we have a lot to talk about because we're operators too over here. So I'm eager to compare notes with you.
I know. Your company was bought by Salesforce.
And there's that. Yes. Swimming in the same ponds, doing the same things, hopefully bringing, all of our lessons learned forward to all of the fun, exciting projects we're working on now. Let's jump in here. I wanted to so operator funds kind of, from my vantage point, have gone from a cute side project to a must-have. So I'm curious to get your perspective. What changed in the market? We definitely see the change from where we sit, but what changed, and also what's different in terms of founder expectations now?
Sure. Well, I'm going to give Malin Yen, who's the founder and GP at Operator Collective, a lot of credit for what changed, because when we went with Operator Collective and started launching and getting that first fund ready, I mean, it was crazy. Like, no one put their LPs up on their website. No one talked about who gave them money. It was all this like secret, hush, hush. No one tells you anything, the don't look behind the curtain stuff. And we really did flip it on its head, right? And it was Malin's idea. I think we'd all been hitting up on the frustration of like VCs control so much. It always seems to be the same people in the room. Like this, we should have different types of people in the room. We should look at different types of companies and founders. But the pragmatism of making that actually come together was a little hard or esoteric for people to get their heads around. And I think what Malin came up with and what we ultimately put together at Operator Collective really shifted the game, right? Because we went out and look, women weren't investing. Like I noticed a big thing at Salesforce back in the way back days when I was sitting at the product exec meeting Wednesday morning. It's pretty much all men in that meeting and me. And I was like on my computer trying to act like I wasn't listening to whatever nonsense people were talking about. And everyone was trying to one up each other with the new Tesla. And this is back when Tesla cost $200K a car and was like outrageous and impossible to get. And they were all on the list. And I was like, I mean, I'm not even a good driver between me and you, but like, I would never spend that much money on a car. That's just, and at that point, I really was like, what? So something felt rotten in Denmark. It was clear like people were getting paid differently, and that led to a whole thing. But I do think another thing I noticed is that we would buy companies, and those founders would stay for a couple of years, and then they would leave and become VCs, and they would often call the male executives in Salesforce and ask them to be LPs or sit on boards or advise, and no one was calling the women. So Operator Collective was unique in that it wasn't just this call to the fact that operators should be helping venture companies build themselves into the next giants, but that female operating executives should be a big part of that as well. So, and when we started, no one was talking about this. I have to tell you, like I remember we launched it at Fortune Most Powerful Women, and no one was talking about this. And I'll tell you the truth, when we went around to a lot of our friends and we were like, let's invest, so many of them had done no investing. And these were ballers.
Wow.
These were people that were running giant divisions of companies or big companies and like number two positions, like very high people in the Valley.
Yeah.
And they had just not been approached, or they had not understood it enough to feel like the approach was something they wanted to take. So I give Malin Yen so much credit because she held this and sort of kept everyone true to the mantra that we should all be involved in the venture ecosystem in a different way. And to your earlier question, founders now want that. Like, I'm surprised the people that are still calling me to angel invest. Like, I haven't had like an operating job in a hot minute, and I'm still getting these calls. And
Yeah.
it's because people are like, yeah, you've actually did it. Like, you actually did it a couple times, and you know, like, what it feels like. And I do think AI is crazy. This feels so much like Salesforce back in the day. I mean, it's different, but it's, I know you probably get this too, Tom. Like, it's always the same, right? Like, I've sold to so many companies, and they're like, wait, my implementation is special. And I'm like, yes, yours and everybody else's. They're all the same, more or less. Some tweaks, but um, similar premise on this one. Like, it's a very exciting time where the tech is shifting at a monumental rate, and the problems you can solve have shifted, right? Like, every problem I ever solved professionally for the last 20 plus years is back on the table to be solved again, right? In a different way, faster, better, something, right? And so that in that breeds an unbelievable amount of opportunity, and there's a lot of power. People are putting money all over the place. Founders are, they have a good idea, and they're smart people, and they know how to get people motivated around their idea. And that is a special, special skill. But scaling that idea up to 20, 50, $100 million is a far different skill set. And operating executives, people that are like professional operators, have been their whole lives. That's all we know how to do, right? I'm not going to tell you to come join my perfume company. I wouldn't even know where to begin to start with something like that. But I can come tell you how to make your company a lot bigger.
Right. Yeah, listen, that really makes a lot of sense. And you have me reflecting back on my first company. And I tell people I've been very fortunate to work with some of the world's best venture capitalists, and it's a great skill, right? To sort of see patterns and to be able to suggest uh, moves that you can make, or strategic disruptions that you need to attend to, in broad market strokes. But, you know, execution is forever, right? Like understanding, like taking the idea or the insight and actually translating that into action here on the ground, that's much, much harder, or at least it's really quite different. And it's
Different.
shocking, right, that it's been so absent. I mean, as you say, a lot of operators go and become venture capitalists, but it also strikes me that sometimes, it's a great gig, right? Because the intellectual nourishment is great because you're talking to all kinds of interesting people, but you don't have to have your hands on the
Right.
gears of the company, right? So, wondering if you could just talk a little bit more about the kinds of interventions that you and your team like to apply when you're helping a company scale, right? Maybe a few examples of like, are there patterns? Are there recurring issues where you lean in and you make key moves that help them get to the other side more quickly?
Well, I mean, I think the beauty of what we built at Operator Collective and what we have there is like, really anything you're up against, we have an absolute expert that will spend half an hour on the phone with you, and that will save you 3 months. Right. And most of them are pretty pragmatic and pretty direct people, right? So they're not going to waste your time either. So, I mean, of course, there are always certain things in growth, right? You focus on the product to begin with. It's really just you're building it or you're trying to figure out how to build it, right? Like, it's kind of the main functions. And then you move into this motion where you're trying to convince people to use it, right? So then you need this new set of expertise to come in, and then you need it at scale. So marketing, and then you have to renew. And so, like, there's sort of this functional growth in a company where departments become more critical as certain, patterns are reached and certain inflection points are reached. So obviously, I think we're uniquely positioned to answer all of those questions and to answer them with people that have actually done them, right? In a real world example where I can be like, well, let me tell you what happened at Salesforce. Okay, yeah, I probably want to hear what happened at Salesforce. That's probably, I mean, it may not happen to me, but I
Uh-huh.
certainly would like to know, like, what happened at your company, Tom, when your
Uh-huh.
first company, your second, like, these stories, even though they may not be exact replicas, are pattern matchers for someone who is in the depth. When you are a founder, you
Right.
are so embedded in that. If you're good, right, that you're
Right.
almost. It's almost like quicksand. Like, you can barely keep your head above being a founder because it seems I've been around enough and with enough. And Mal and Operator Collective, that was a founder position too, moving that like there. It's all encompassing. So that perspective of someone who's had it happen to them and gone to the other side and survived it, and just understanding what they did, maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't. at least does like a pattern recognition
Right.
match in the
Right.
founder's head. And they're like, oh, I can do this. Hold on. I
Right.
was getting stuck. Like, let me
Right.
step back and like, okay,
Yeah.
yes.
What I hear you getting to also is just the psychological dimension of sort of allyship with the founder, right? It's so
Yes.
lonely. It's so hard. Having some battle stories that, as you say, might not correspond perfectly to whatever the founder is dealing with, but there's a pattern match
Yeah.
be made, right? And yeah, that's really powerful. I'm curious though along these lines, Layla, because in our shop, sometimes founders are like sponges and they really want to listen and learn and crack the puzzle. The tension is that to be an effective founder, you have to kind of be on a mission from God and have this intense, this demonic intensity, right? You bring to whatever you do, which can get in the way, right, of listening to people with an outside perspective. Have you bumped into that?
Oh, sure. Oh my goodness. Sure. I used to have this joke. Like, I already have kids. Why am I venture capitalist? Like, I just tell people what to do and they don't do it. And then they come back 6 months later and are crying, telling me they should have done it, and then they don't do it again. Like, what am I doing? Look, it's you have to believe so completely when you're a founder. You have to believe it because it's hard. And there are dark moments where it's not looking good. I mean, every good founder has thought it was going to totally fail more than once. At least the ones that are honest with me, right? Maybe they're a little drunk when they admit it, but nevertheless, like that is a truth, right? So I think that I also understood and it was great, it's great to listen to founders and talk to them. Like a lot of it is just them needing to be able to talk to someone they trust that has a vested interest, but isn't like so in the weeds trying to help them that it gives them good perspective. It's like a therapist to some degree, right? Where you
Right.
can hear them, you can sort of echo back what they're saying, and with your own experience you can sort of relate on some level. I just think like these are lonely positions, and often we make them too lonely. We glorify the founder to a point which is almost like Hollywood-esque. It's impossible to live up to. Everyone is human. Everyone is learning. Most of these founders were doing something else. They've never built a software. All I've ever done is build software companies. That's all I know how to do, right? Were like, teachers, lawyers, plumbers, vets. They were doing all different jobs. And then they had an epiphany and came and so the fact that they don't have pattern matching or comfort in the decisions they have to make in a software company that is different than a traditional packaged goods company or some other type of services company. Of course they don't. How could they? Right. So I mean, one of the things I think that since I got really in the venture ecosystem with Operator Collective and then, as well with Black Venture Institute and a number of other things, it's just like it was very closed doors, right? And even for founders, even for the ones that were seemingly being funded and supported, they felt as if they needed to perform. It was constantly for the VCs performing, whereas some real honest dialogue, like, hey, I am not making it. I am not hitting pipe. Like, we can't close these customers. Then a VC will be like, I know everyone at that customer. Let me call Jim, Mike, Bob, whomever, like, or let me sit with your marketing team and explain to them why this or that. Like, it's sort of that thing, like, if you don't tell me, I can't help you. Right. And so it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I feel for founders because they also are sort of made to think like you have to be perfect and we're giving you all this and you're the performing one and this and that. It's tough.
Yeah, I think the founders that worry me the most are either the ones who feel like they have to put on a perfect show all the time. They never let their hair down. They never speak plainly with you. Or even more dangerous, the second category of founders who are excited but let it all go to their heads, right? You raise a little bit of money, you kill, you got some customers, you slay a dragon or two, and you think that you're unstoppable. And then, markets shift, a
Well, I
competitor
know
encroaches,
technology shifts, pricing models
right?
shift. I mean, and we don't do those people any favors in Silicon Valley. Those are the glorified ones. Like you were asking, meaning why we're in operators in venture? Because there was no room in venture for anyone but the founder and the venture capitalist. It was like the biggest love affair on the planet, Thornbirds-esque, whatever, and so where's an operating executive who knows how to grow things in that? I'm not a brilliant founder that came up with this revolutionary idea, and I'm not a billionaire venture capitalist who's throwing down huge amounts of money, with pattern recognition. I'm someone who sat in someone's company and helped them build it up to a giant behemoth, which is pretty damn useful when you think about
Absolutely.
it. But up until now, the relationship was always venture capitalist and founder, and
Yeah.
and those traditional roles stay traditional. And I think, excuse me, um, my goodness, I'm
That's you.
sorry. I think with us at Operator Collective, with your fund, with a lot of operating executives making money with either an acquisition buyout or going public or whatever, they started seeing that they wanted to help founders have an easier time, right? I
Right.
mean, aren't we all just trying to make it better for the ones that come next? Like, isn't that sort of like fundamentally the right human pattern to be following? So if we all believe in that, it seems right that we would want to sit with the founder and be like, oh, Lord, no, don't partner with everyone.
Right.
Like you really need to think about who you're partnering with and why you're, or whatever the salient topic of the moment might be. So, I mean, I actually think this shift towards operators in the venture cycle is proving to build stronger companies, right? I mean, it has been a rough road. Like the pandemic, AI exploded. I mean, it has been a lot of crazy stuff. Like, I mean, we had crazy stuff in .com, like everything exploded in the 90s, and it was crazy too. But a global pandemic, and absolutely brand new tech, like that we haven't seen since the cloud erupted in like in the early early millennium. I'm talking about that 2000s. I guess that's what we say. I mean, this is a unique confluence of crazy factors. So I'm quite pleased, and I feel comfortable continuing to invest because so many venture capital organizations have operating folks in the seat, and with Carrie, right? I mean, I'm not just an operating executive in residence sitting here being deployed to some people every now and then, and you're like giving me some this and that. Like, if you have carry in a fund, that's like stock options. You care in a different way. You're embedded in the success of how the fund does. So you engage with the folks probably in a different way, I would imagine.
Well, let's drill in there because a minute ago you mentioned that there are these breakthrough conversations that your LPs will have with the founder in 30 minutes. They can help, the heavens can open and they can share some deep insights that get things moving again. So multiple operators involved in Operator Collective. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you structure the economics and the engagement, because these are busy people, right?
Well, look, people are LPs. I mean, I think that's what you need to understand. They're investors in the fund. And they are helping the investments we're doing in the fund, right? I mean, so like I'll use myself as an example. I mean, obviously I'm chair. I was partner for a long time in the initial fund, but like people often want to talk to me about ecosystems, right? Or how to think about partnership or how to think about scale or how to think about growth from like 10 to 60 million or different things like this. And, one thing that Malin did an excellent job in was building really a great database of what everyone's good at and what people want to talk to people about and what people are interested in learning more about, so that it's not just what the founders and the companies are looking at, but also this LP base that, as I told you, at least in the initial stages, was really some people's first foray into investing. Right. I mean, so many people's. It was sort of unbelievable in the first fund, which is the one I can really speak to. Right. And so I think it's a natural synergy in that, I mean, they already have a vested interest in these companies being successful because they're LPs and Operator Collective. So
Mhm.
why wouldn't they get on the phone for half an hour? And I mean, Malin is prudent about how she asks and when she asks. It's not like you're being called every day. Everyone has big jobs and things
Right.
and stuff. But like in crucial situations, I mean, there have been many times when I've gotten on the phone with people about ecosystem development scale from a certain number to another number and sort of the right teams and folks that need to be in place, different things you need to consider. And those are just the same as I would do for anything I angel invested in, right? Or was like friends with the founder. Right? I'm sure I'll talk to you for half an hour. I mean, everyone has half an hour. You gotta be a real asshole if you can't spare half an hour, right? I mean, like,
Absolutely. Well, listen, you mentioned, and I agree with you, AI, this is a different level of crazy. It's a different level of intensity and velocity. A lot of that has to do with AI and what's happening there. I was wondering if you could give a perspective on how enterprise buyers are demanding proof of ROI, right? In an AI context where it's still very early innings, right?
yeah.
what advice do you have for B2B teams? How should they align? How should they change their operating playbook to demonstrate ROI at the urgency that buyers seem to be requiring it these days?
Right. I mean, I think a lot is in how you paint the value of what you're going to bring them and how it's going to help them make long-term decisions. This is still an implementation, right? Which everyone seems to be forgetting, right? Like, and implementing software in big companies is hard, right? I mean, it got way better from client server to cloud. Oh my gosh, at least everyone was on the same version, right? Holy smokes, right? But this is going to take a minute. And I remember at Salesforce for a long time, big part of my job was talking about people how they could trust the cloud. I mean, for years, for so many more years than you would think, should be having that conversation with companies. I was having it, and because people understood the databases in the server room on the seventh floor with the fans in them, they knew then the data was in that room on the seventh floor, and the conceptual leap to it being in a cloud in a multi-tenant environment was too much, too terrifying, too scary. So I think we will run into similar things with AI. This is, in a way, trusting the database to make decisions within a parameter base is amazing. I mean, for me, I'm itching to
Yeah.
get to work on this. Like, I can't stand how exciting this is, because I spent my whole career trying to build things with technical limitations that didn't allow me to take the next best action in a decision which is not that critical, right? I mean, I'm not going to close your contract for you, but let me move the deal around as I see activity going on in the database. Like, these types of things seem pretty basic in what anything should do. So it shifts the way anyone thinks about building software. That said, no bank is going to rip out what they have and shove in AI and say, go on your money, without a lot of diligence and consideration, security protocol, all of those things. So, I think that anyone that does not have a very articulated roadmap, any customer that doesn't have an articulated roadmap about where they intend to introduce AI agentic functions into their workflow and their business right now,
Mhm.
is behind. And
Yep.
as a company, you can come up with some type of playbook or some type of formula where you can come in there and you can explain to them that here's the best places to start based on the problems they're trying to solve, or whatever, whatever you bring to the table. But every company should have a real answer for the story about what they're doing with AI and why it's going to make a difference. And they need their own roadmap about how they're building to it. And so that includes a software company, by the way. I mean, I was with a company recently and I was like, where's AI? And they're like, oh, we don't exactly have it. I was like, okay, what's the definition of it? And they were humming and hawing. And I was like, you have it here. You have it here. You have it here. You have it. You just have to think about it in a slightly different way. But I think, this is a moment of mass disruption. I can see it. The whole industry is going bananas again. I cannot tell you how many calls I'm getting from people I'm raising, I'm raising, I'm raising, I'm raising. So it's starting again, right? And that's because people have figured out how to build on the models in a way that they understand enough. And now it's a race to are you a feature or a platform? And sort of how's that going to play out in the next couple of years? And then who's going to eat what? Right? Because M&A will start back up again, I imagine, pretty soon here, and some earnestly. And then we'll see. But I think the idea that workflow should be more intuitive, to what you were saying earlier, that easy decisions should be made by the application, and you should be able to understand that and feel confident in that. I think that we are more than there in a lot of different areas, and some of the legacy vendors are going to have a tough time with that.
So, Leyla, I love stories about battles and scars and lessons learned. I was wondering if you could share a vignette or a story about an operator scar you carry from Salesforce that changes how you invest or advise.
Sure. I never invest in a company thinking it's going to go public.
Mhm.
Ever.
Huh?
Right? I never.
Huh.
And that is because I ran the app exchange at Salesforce for so many years, and I was very lucky to watch the M&A team buy so many companies and sort of watch that all go down. I also watched the impact of that, sort of had to manage that, which was harder. But
Yeah.
in that process, I understood just how many companies get bought and how few go public. So for me, if when you're pitching me, I will inevitably ask you, who do you sell this to if it succeeds, right?
Right.
Post 100 million, whatever. Let's play
Right.
that game.
Yeah.
And if they kind of look at me like I'm crazy and tell me they're going to go public, I tend to hesitate in
Mm.
that moment. And that is purely from having this very unique seat of watching Salesforce, very intimately buy so
Yeah.
many companies, yours included, right?
Right.
And because I was in charge of the ecosystem. So, it impacted the ecosystem every time we
Yeah.
bought something. So, and just sort of getting an understanding of how many transactions go down that way. I think, I was very much like a .comer. So I was like, everyone goes public and has a
Right.
Herman Miller chair and makes $1 million, and this is what's going to happen. So, and then I went Salesforce, right?
Yeah.
And that was a wild run.
Yeah. Yeah.
I started there. They were 500 million. I left. It was 17 billion.
Right.
I was like employee number 1,800 and something. There were 52,000 when I left. So it was just, I was at a very wild moment in like an excellent and epic company's history. But yeah, that is one. I would say it's an operating scar. Maybe it was more a realization, right? And sort of, and so for me, when I'm investing, and really when I'm looking to do anything with a company, like a certain amount of pragmatism around the exit, if you're a private company,
Yeah.
is required for me. Even if the founders are super wealthy and this is like their 10th company, like the employees aren't.
Right.
The VCs need to return. I mean, those funds,
Right.
they do actually get
That's right.
judged if they don't return rather harshly, So,
That's right.
and the employees, right? I know so many people who are at private companies and think they have so much money. And I'm like,
Right.
I hope so. I mean, I hope so. But,
Yeah.
it's a lot different than public company,
Yeah.
stock. It's a lot different. So, that's one. I mean, other battle scars. Look, I could go all night, Tom. I'm not your average software executive, right? I act a little strange, and I'm definitely a little louder, and none of that has changed, right? And it was never any different. I do remember this one. I always bring this up just because I think it's funny. Is like there was a period of time in my career where I consistently got feedback, which was like, "Be less Leyla." And that I thought that was really interesting because I was like, I just don't have any idea how the hell to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Who else would you
shut
do?
up. I think maybe they're trying to say shut up would have been like a better, maybe a like more clear way. But I do think that being clear on feedback, even though it can feel harsh, and I like think I'm a pretty good boss, right? I've gotten that from a lot of people, but I have definitely sat across from people I really love and said things that were mean, right? I mean, not mean on purpose, but mean because you're not hearing me. And this is not a friendship. This is a company.
Right.
And I have to say this mean thing to you. And I've had people say mean things to me, right? And then I've had people say dumb things like be less Leyla.
Yeah.
So
what do you do with
even
that?
though the mean things sting and hurt and are really hard to hear and really hard to say, like I never grew from Be Less Leyla. And I sure grew from like, Leyla, you can't dress like that. Leyla, you can't say shit all the time. Leyla, you can't talk back this way to these people. Leyla, those moments, maybe I agreed or I disagree with the feedback, but at least it was clear, right? At least I was like, oh, okay, you want me to wear nicer clothes.
I think clarity is kindness, right? So maybe it's being mean, but with the executives I work with, I see a lot of people skirting what I like to call the courageous conversation. So you're doing a disservice to the other person by not making them aware of the places and ways in which it's not necessarily that they're falling down, but where they could be so much better, right? I mean, I think it's pretty powerful, but I see so many people, as you say, just avoiding the hard conversation, and when they have it, saying useless things like "be less Leyla." Like you got to make it more specific and actionable than that.
And it's hard. I mean, like it's hard. It's hard to tell the truth, and it's hard to like show someone a mirror on something they don't want to see. I'm like the hardest. Can you imagine giving me hard feedback? I mean, God bless them all. Like, I'm sorry, Mike. Sorry, Alex, or a couple of people. I should definitely apologize too. But in the end, like I took it. That feedback gnawed at me enough, and I took it and I changed, and I got the result I wanted more often than not because what they were saying was the truth, right? So. But we haven't fostered that type of an arrangement the way, and I'm not sure it's possible in capitalist corporate America to have it's such a competitive environment, right? I
Sure.
mean, if you're
Sure.
really, it tends to be very competitive, right? So I'm
Right.
not sure. I guess it's a hard thing to do, but I will find like the great leaders, the ones that I look back on, I'm like, you redefined the way I thought about myself, the way I thought about how I could do work. Um, were definitely the ones that were just brutally honest with
Yeah.
me. And like I walked out of there and started crying in the bathroom for sure. Right. And then
Right.
like pulled myself together and acted like I didn't. But like, um, but you know, the one, and then be less Layla, I was like, you're more like, you be less, be more Layla, you know, like,
Right. Well, who
so
else raises the question, who else would you be? But listen, I appreciate the comment about exits. My first company was called Rapt, RAPT. The second one was called Crux, KRUX. I picked those names intentionally because the tickers were available, right? So I think, it's always, for me at least, it's useful to start with a big, big dream and not try to be, because I'm sure you've seen operators who would just try to cobble together a feature masquerading as a product, masquerading as a company, and then flip it to somebody
Yeah.
who will buy it. Like, you have to be more disciplined and have the longer arc of the company hopefully in mind. But yeah, I mean, I've as one investor I worked with said it, and this line has always stuck with me. Like, you wake up every day and you try to do the strategic thing, and then sometimes you become strategic to somebody else, right?
right.
And that's capitalism. That's markets. Um, okay, so KRUX didn't become a public company, but as you said,
We bought you at Salesforce.
and it all worked out. It all worked out, and it flourished
Yeah.
at Salesforce. So
Yeah.
that's really important as well. I also wanted to come back to something you said about, yeah, you've got investors and they need returns, but you have employees too, right? And so I can tell you, for Vivek, my co-founder, and I, speaking of Crux, the best part was when people told us, listen, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to pay my kids' college tuition, or I just put a payment down on a mortgage, or I just bought a big fancy boat, or whatever, right? Like, that was the best part, is creating wealth for employees, because making investors just a little bit richer, yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's the
okay,
job, right? They gave you money. They
right?
took it. It's
It's
the
important.
job, but I definitely, employees are always number one on my list, right?
Mhm.
Because that's where you actually see a material difference, and you see people get life changing money. I
It's the
mean, it
best part.
happened to me. It's happened to many people. Like, and so, but yeah, like again, being a founder is tough. It's lonely and it's tough, and it's hard to trust people, right? And so I think one thing Operator Collective continues to bring to its founders is like, you can trust us. Like, we're going to tell you the truth. And yes, we're mostly women, to be frank. We are pretty much more than 90% women. But there's also just we've seen a lot of things across the board, and you can trust us, and we're going to try to help you for the period of time we spend dialoguing with you or talking to you. Um, and Malin does a really good job of keeping everyone up to speed. So I just think the operator in the new company creation cycle shouldn't be a surprise, right? It should have always been there. It was left out, and now it's in there. And I do think we're seeing more resilient companies, right?
Yeah.
I do, because they have. I mean, even just my thesis on walking in, that if you think you're going to go public, you're probably not. When I ask that question, oftentimes if they are true believers, and I get it, you got to believe. Sometimes you got to believe all the way to the end, and I
Sure.
totally get it.
Yeah.
But if they don't have an answer the first time, they sure do the next time. And they
That's right.
often will start the second meeting with me and be like, hey, so I thought about what you were saying, and
Right.
here's who would buy my company immediately if I hit this
Yeah.
philosophy, this. And so even if I just do that and they think I'm a horse's ass and don't want me in their room, I still did them a major favor, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
you got to have that. You
Totally.
have to know, as a private company leader, you have to know what the exit. It's like being on the airplane. Where are all the exits? What do you do? Put your mask on first. You have to have your mask on first before a plane even takes off. You have to have a mask on if you're one of the founders or fundamental executives of a privately held company that's growing or doing things. You have to sort of know that. So yeah, I mean, I just think I give Malin all the credit. She saw it and she put it together, and now there's this army of really amazing executives, mostly women, that are helping nurture these next generations of company, and they're doing it as investors, right? Not some side hustle, investor in residence. Here's a little this, it's a little that. Like they're interested in having the conversations because it's their money inside the companies, which is pretty brilliant and as it should be.
Absolutely. Hey, well, listen, this is the part where we go to the lightning round, and I'm going to ask you some quick hitting questions.
Great.
Don't think, don't over emote, just give me your gut.
Okay.
You ready? All
Yeah.
right. Let's jump in. What's the first thing you do when a founder pings you in a panic?
Simply, I mean, I have kids, so I say that calm down, right? In a nicer way, depending on who it is. But I'm like, it's okay. This is all okay. It's whatever it is. Like the SVB thing, it's okay.
Right.
Everything's gonna be okay.
Beautiful. What's one operator superpower most founders consistently underrate?
Evolution of culture.
100%. I agree with that for sure. One tiny habit that keeps your team execution focused week after week.
I make everyone write me status. At the end of every week, if you work for me, at the end of every week, you send me 3 bullets of status that you did. And I typically tend to round that up and send it to whoever I work for. I find it just, a lot of people don't like it initially, but then they do. It's a level of transparency that doesn't exist in Slack or in the other tools.
What's the single biggest way AI is changing VC?
Gold rush. That's my word there. The VCs love a gold rush, man. I mean, this is like the original minor 49ers. I swear to God, like it's about to get crazy up in here. Nothing's even started yet. The big guys came in the room, but no one's divided up and started playing. Like now it's going to get wild. I mean, so I think, I think a lot of people are raising funds. I think a lot of people are there. Investing is wild again. I mean, it doesn't feel like COVID or pre-COVID quite yet, but I cannot believe how much inbound I have. Right. And I'm like, I'm angel and I'm chair. I'm not like Malin runs the fund, right? Like I help, but I'm on the side. And just my personal like angel inbound is, I'd say it's up. I don't even know, 600% from this time last year. So like, I can just tell by that and like the flurry and watching whatever's happening on LinkedIn, like it's getting wild again. So it's going to get crazy.
Yeah, we've been at this a while. I'm right there with you. I've never seen things this caffeinated, and 99 was pretty caffeinated. So here we are, and what a great time to be building.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up this episode of the Closed Session podcast. I really want to thank you, Leyla, Chair at Operator Collective, for joining us.
Thank you, Tom. I had a great time.
If you'd like to contact Leyla, you can find a link to her LinkedIn profile in our show notes or at closedsessionpod.com. You can visit her company website at operatorcollective.com. If you haven't subscribed yet and want a regular stream of research and insights in your podcast feed, hit that subscribe button now in your podcast app or follow us on YouTube. Okay, everybody, that's all for today. Until next time, keep building, keep cranking.